Hello everyone, this is part 2 of What If Naruto Was the Child of the Moon in Percy Jackson, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
The Camaro drove through dark country roads bounding towards a place unknown to Naruto and Percy. Wind slammed against the Camaro, and rain lashed through the windshield. Sally kept her foot on the gas the whole time, though Naruto was wondering if Sally could see where they were going. Percy stared at Grover with a dumbfounded look on his face. Naruto spoke up, "No, Percy. You aren't going insane. I can see it too, though I still can't believe it," like he could read Percy's mind. All Percy could say was, "So, you and my mom know each other." Grover kept glancing at the rear-view mirror though there were no cars behind them. "Not exactly," he said. "I mean, we've never met in person, but she knew I was watching you." He continued while pointing at the two boys. "Watching us?" Naruto asked. "Keeping tabs on you. Making sure you were okay. But I wasn't faking being your friend," he added hastily. "I am your friend." What are you exactly?" That, Grover was about to answer when Naruto cut him off. "He's a satyr." Both boys looked at the blonde. "How did you?" Grover asked. "My mom told me to read up on Greek mythology. I thought nothing of it, at first, but now, it's all starting to make sense." But those are just myths," Percy said. "Were those old ladies at the fruit stand a myth, Percy? Was Mrs. Dodds a myth? So you admit there was a Mrs. Dodds?" "Of course. Then why? The less you knew, the fewer monsters you'd attract," Grover said, "like that should be perfectly obvious. We put mist over the human's eyes. We hoped you'd think the kindly one was a hallucination. But it was no good. You started to realize who you are." "Wah." Naruto cut Percy off. "This isn't the time, guys. I sense something coming. It's big and smells like cow." Grover had a surprised look on his face as he stared at Naruto through the rear-view mirror. He was about to ask what Naruto meant, but a weird bellowing noise rose up from behind them, closer than before. Whatever it was chasing them was still on their trail. "Percy," Sally said, "there's too much to explain and not enough time. We have to get you to safety." "Safety from what? Who's after us?" "Oh. Nobody much," Grover said. "Just the Lord of the Dead and a few of his bloodthirstiest minions." "Grover. Sorry, Mrs. Jackson. Could you drive faster, please?" Sally made a hard left. They swerved onto a narrower road, racing past darkened farmhouses and wooden hills and a pick-your-own-strawberry signs with white picket fences. Where are we going?" Percy asked. "The summer camp one told you about." Sally's voice was tight. She was trying for my sake not to be scared. "The place your father wanted to send you. The place you didn't want me to go." Naruto made a loud sigh with a hand on his face, shaking his head from side to side. "Please, dear," Sally begged. "This is hard enough. Try to understand. Both of you are in danger. Because some old ladies cut yarn." "Those weren't old ladies, weren't they?" Naruto said. "Those were the fates. They appear in front of you when someone is about to die." "You seem to know an awful lot about this, Naruto," Grover said. "I did some thinking when we were on the bus on the way to New York. I just connected the dots." Grover was dumbfounded at what Naruto said. Sally made a hard right and Naruto and Percy made out the figure she'd swerved to avoid a dark fluttering shape now lost behind them in the storm. "What was that?" Percy asked. "We're almost there," Sally said, ignoring Percy's question. "Another mile. Please, please, please." Outside there was nothing but rain and darkness, the kind of empty countryside you get way out on the tip of Long Island. There was a blinding flash, a jaw-rattling boom and the car exploded. "Percy! Naruto!" Sally shouted. "I'm okay," Percy groaned. "That could have gone better." Naruto managed. Actually, the car hadn't exploded, they just swerved into a ditch. The driver's side door was wedged in the mud. The roof was cut like an eggshell and rain was pouring in. "Lightning," Naruto thought. "We must have been blasted off of the road." "Grover!" Percy shouted. Grover was slumped over motionless, blood trickling from the side of his mouth. Percy shook him, but he wasn't waking up any time soon. "Food," Grover groaned. Naruto chuckled. Hee hee. As much as I find this funny, Grover, now is not the time. Percy, Naruto, Sally said. We have to, her voice faltered. In a flash of lightning, through the mud-spattered rear windshield, they saw a figure lumbering toward them on the shoulder of the road. It was a dark silhouette of a huge guy, like a football player. He seemed to be holding a blanket over his head. His top half was bulky and fuzzy. His upraised hands made it look like he had horns. Percy gulped. Who is Percy? Naruto, my mother said in a deadly serious tone. Get out of the car, now. Sally threw herself against the driver's side door. It was jammed shut in the mud. Percy tried his side of the door. It was stuck too. Percy looked up desperately at the hole in the roof. It might have been an exit, but the edges were sizzling and smoking. Climb out the passenger's side. My mother told me. Naruto, when did you? No time. We have to go, now. Naruto said as he pulled Sally, Percy and Grover out of the car. Boys, do you see that big tree? Sally said, pointing at the direction of the tree. Another flash of lightning, the boys saw the tree she meant, a huge, White House Christmas tree-sized pine at the crest of the nearest hill. That's the property line, Sally said. Get over that hill and you'll see a big farmhouse down in the valley. Run and don't look back. Yell for help. Don't stop until you reach the door. Mom, you're coming too. Percy insisted. Sally's face was pale, her eyes as sad as when she looked at the ocean. You are coming with us, Auntie Sally. Naruto shouted. We are not leaving anyone behind. Food. Grover moaned louder. Naruto was trying hard to control his laughter in the serious situation. The man with the blanket on his head kept coming toward them, making his grunting, snorting noises. As he got closer, they got a clear view of the thing chasing them. The thing that they thought was a blanket over his head was not a blanket at all. They were horns. The big fuzz mass that they thought was too big for his head really was his head. He doesn't want me, Sally told Percy. He wants you. Besides, I can't cross the property line. But, no time to argue, Naruto said as he picked up Sally and firemen carried her up the hill. Percy followed her. Sally was surprised when he saw another Naruto carrying Grover at his side. Both boys glanced back. They saw what the monster really looked like. He was 7 feet tall, easy, his arms and legs were like something from the cover of Muscle Man magazine, bulging biceps and triceps and a bunch of other keps, all stuffed like baseballs under vein webbed skin. He wore no clothes except for bright white underwear. He had coarse brown hair that started at about his belly button and got thicker as it reached his shoulders. His neck was a mass of muscle and fur leading up to his enormous head, which had a snout as long as an arm, snotty nostrils with a gleaming brass ring, cruel black eyes, and horns, enormous black and white horns with points you just couldn't get from an electric sharpener. That's Pasiphae's son, Naruto said. But why is he after Percy? But he's the Min. Don't say his name, Sally warned. Names have power. The bullman hunched over the car, sniffing in the windows. Food. Grover moaned. Shush, Naruto told him as he put a hand over Grover's mouth. Mom, what's he doing? Doesn't he see us? Percy asked. His sight and hearing are terrible, she said. He goes by smell, but he'll figure out where we are soon enough. R-O-O-O-A-A-A-A-R-R-R-R. As if on cue, the bullman bellowed in rage. He picked up Gabe's Camaro by the torn roof, the chassis creaking and groaning. He raised the car over his head and threw it down the road. It slammed into the wet asphalt and skidded in a shower of sparks for about half a mile before coming to a stop. The gas tank exploded. Percy, Naruto, Sally said. When he sees us, he'll charge. Wait until the last second, then jump out of the way directly sideways. He can't change directions very well once he's charging. Do you understand? How do you know all this? Naruto asked. I've been worried about an attack for a long time. I should have expected this. I was selfish, keeping both of you near me. Keeping us near you. But, the bullman picked up their scent. He let out a huge bellow of rage and started tromping up the hill. The pine tree was only a few more yards, but the hill was getting steeper and slicker. The bullman was closing in. Another few seconds and he'd be on top of us. Percy got an idea and sprinted to the left and turned to face the creature. The Minotaur was bearing down on Percy with his black eyes full of hate. Percy looked like he wanted to run away for fear of the monster. Nevertheless, he held his ground and, at the last moment, jumped to the side. The bullman stormed past Percy like a freight train, then bellowed with frustration and turned, but not toward Percy, but this time, the monster charged toward Sally, who was being set down by Naruto. They had reached the crest of the hill. Down the other side, the boys could see a valley, just as Sally described, and the lights of a farmhouse were glowing yellow through the rain. But that was half a mile away. They would never make it. The bullman grunted, pawing the ground. He kept his eyes on Sally, who was now retreating slowly downhill, back toward the road, trying to lead the monster away from the boys. Naruto, Percy, run. She told them. I can't go any farther. Run. Sally was running the opposite direction trying to get the bull's attention away from the boys. Percy stood frozen as the monster charged his mother. Sally tried to sidestep the bull just like what Percy did, but the bullman seemed to have learned his lesson. She was grabbed by the neck as she tried to get away. He lifted her as she struggled, kicking and pummeling the air. She caught both boys' eyes, and managed to choke out one word, go. With an angry roar, the monster closed his fists around Sally's neck, and she dissolved before their eyes, melting into a light, a shimmering golden form, as if she were a holographic projection. A blinding flash and she was simply gone. Mom. Aunt Sally. Naruto fumed with anger. He could hear a sinister laughter resonating through his head saying, yes, use my power. As red chakra permeated through him and his eyes flickered from the normal blue eyes to red with a vertical slit in the middle, like a fox. He placed Grover down near a tree and charged the beast. Naruto appeared near his face, catching the bull man off guard. He delivered a drop kick on his face, but the beast was able to withstand the blow because of his bulk. He went to a flurry of punches and kicks, not knowing if he was doing damage or not. The bull, on the other hand, was waving his hands trying to swat Naruto away. This is going to be harder than I thought, he mumbled. Naruto jumped backwards to make some distance. His hands went into a blur, making a series of hand signs. Wind style, wind scythe jutsu. The Minotaur raised its hands to cover its face and brace itself for the incoming jutsu. The wind hit the bullman and sliced through it while simultaneously pushing it back. When the monster brought down its hands, it was bleeding but, unfortunately, still alive. Seeing his mother disintegrate stunned Percy and he couldn't move, but seeing Naruto attack the bullman managed to get Percy out of his state of fear. He was at a dumbfounded look as he saw Naruto moving so fast, but was more shocked when he saw that every punch and kick Naruto delivered only seemed to get the bullman angrier. Percy took off his rain jacket and waved it in the air. Hey, stupid, ground beef, he shouted. Oh, hey, 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 r. The monster charged Percy, shaking his meaty fists. The bullman charged too fast, his arms out to grab Percy whichever way Percy would try to dodge. Percy's legs tensed. He knew he couldn't jump sideways, so he did something the bull did not expect. He leaped straight up, kicking off the creature's head using it as a springboard, turning in midair, landing on the bullman's neck. Damn, that was awesome, Naruto thought. Percy held onto the horns until the moment of impact, which nearly knocked his teeth out. He got a good grip of the horns and pulled at the horn with all his might. Thunder and lightning was still going strong around them. Meanwhile, Grover was groaning in the grass. Percy wanted to yell at Grover to shut up, but the way the bullman was wobbling around, if Percy would open his mouth, he would bite his tongue off. Food. Grover moaned louder. The bullman was staggering about trying to shake Percy off his head. He could hear Grover's loud moaning and began wobbling over in his direction. Naruto appeared beside Percy and Naruto locked his hands on one of the horns. Both boys realized what was happening, so they pulled harder in order to change the direction the bullman was going. The monster tensed, trying to pull into the direction it wanted to go. There was a tug of war against the two sides, with the Minotaur flailing wildly like a rodeo bull until there was a loud and audible snap. The boys fell down the back of the beast, and the bullman fell forward into another tree. Naruto looked at what he had in his hand and grinned. Hey, beef breath, he taunted the beast. I got your horn right here. The beast turned towards their direction and bellowed in rage. He charged towards the blonde, ready grab him wherever he would dodge. Naruto summoned a shadow and began forming a ball in his hand. Percy, get ready, Naruto shouted as he began to charge. Giant Rasengan. He shouted as he slammed it towards the beast's chest, causing it to skid backwards until he hit a tree. Before the jutsu hit him, the bullman managed to slam his hands towards one of the Narutos, which unfortunately was the real one. It sent him flying towards the trees close to Grover. Percy. Finish him. Naruto shouted as he was sent flying. Percy charged the Minotaur as it hit the tree and drove the horn on its belly. The bullman roared in agony. He flailed, clawing at his chest, then began to disintegrate like crumbling sand, blown away in chunks by the wind, the same way Mrs. Dodds had burst apart. The monster was gone. The rain had stopped. The storm still rumbled, but only in the distance. Percy and Naruto smelled like livestock. Percy head hurt so bad but he managed to make his way towards Naruto and Grover. The satyr was still unconscious. You don't look too good, Percy said. Well, I've been through worse, Naruto replied, trying to get up. Ow, he said, immediately clutching his chest. What's wrong? Percy began to walk towards Naruto, but he began to feel drowsy and exhausted from the encounter. Percy fell down and collapsed right next to Grover. Naruto felt the red chakra dissipate from his system, and he too began to feel exhausted. As he was about to pass out, he heard the clops of hooves approaching. He managed to make out a familiar bearded old man making his way towards them with a girl with curled golden hair who knelt next to him. Chiron, this one's hurt. That was the last thing he heard when everything went black. Crashh. Two boys crashed in a foot of a statue. One of the boys was wearing a navy blue, short-sleeved shirt with a high collar and an Uchiha crest on the back, white shorts. His skin was dark gray and his hair was long and dark blue. On his back, there were webbed claw-shaped wings. This is Sasuke Uchiha. The other boy was wearing an orange and blue jacket with a white swirl tassel on the left side, and a red Uzumaki crest on the back and an orange pair of pants. There was a shroud of translucent red cloak of bubbles of red chakra forming long ears on the head area and 3 tails on the rear end. His eyes were darkened around them and his pupils were red with a slit pattern on them. His teeth also grew fangs. This is Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto was surprised when a huge hand blocked his strike. The huge hand slapped him away, flying towards the foot of the other statue right across it. Sasuke gritted his teeth. I have no time to waste. This body. Sasuke closed his eyes. Naruto checked his left hand. I can't feel my left hand. That power of yours too. Of course there was a risk, Naruto said. Sasuke just smiled. Do you know? This place is called the Valley of the End, the country border. This is the perfect setting, isn't it? Quote, comma, dot, quote. Like I said, the time for talk is over. Yes, that's right. The time to talk is over. Quote, comma, dot, quote. Well, finally it's ending, this battle. Sasuke made the necessary hand signs, Chidori. Naruto held out his right hand and a ball formed on his hand. Both boys charged, aiming their respective jutsu at each other. Both jutsu collided and exploded. Line break. A few minutes later, a tall, lovely young woman with a well-built body, shoulder-length hair and silver eyes was walking through the woods stalking an animal it had been hunting. She eventually made it to an area with a waterfall and 2 huge statues. She was surprised to see the destruction she saw all around the area. She spotted an orange figure lying on the ground and made her way towards it to check it out. When she made her way there, she saw a injured boy lying on his back with a pool of blood forming at his side. She was about to leave him to die, since she saw that the figure was a boy, but curiosity took over her. She knelt down to check his pulse. Her eyes went wide when she felt a pulse, but it was weak. As she was touching him, she had a vision of the boy's horrible past. She felt the resentment to people who should have accepted and the longing for acceptance he had. Her heart just melted on the spot, and, on a whim, she decided to teleport away with the boy in a bright flash of light. A familiar yellow-haired boy opens his eyes slowly to see another ceiling he has never seen before. One thing was on his mind with what he had seen. Why am I seeing this now? He heard a voice coming from the bed next to him asking, what was stolen? He decided to sit up. Your guess is as good as mine. A girl on the bed next to his was startled and almost dropped the bowl of weird pudding-like stuff she was feeding the boy on the adjacent bed, who he could make out was Percy. The girl looked to be at the same age of Percy, maybe a couple of inches taller than him, and a whole lot more athletic looking. She had a deep tan and curly blonde hair and her eyes were startling gray, like storm clouds. Right now, she was wearing an orange shirt with a blue skirt that stopped just before the knees and blue sneakers. Don't scare me like that, she exclaimed as she watched Naruto starting to get up. Naruto felt stiff as he was getting up, but his chest didn't hurt anymore, so he could only assume that the fox had mended his injuries. He began to stretch to get rid of the kinks in his joints. How are you up? You shouldn't be awake until tomorrow at the very least, she asked with a dumbfounded look on her face. I have always been a fast healer, Naruto said. What about him? Will he be okay? Oh, yeah. He will be fine. He just needs rest. He should be up by tomorrow, Annabeth replied. That's good, Naruto said. Well anyway, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Nice to meet you, he said, offering a hand for a handshake with his signature smile. Annabeth looked at him slightly as if she was studying him or finding a way to take him down. She smiled and a little blush found its way onto her cheeks. She finally took her hand, shook it with the smile never leaving her face. I'm Annabeth Chase. Nice to meet you too. So, where am I? Naruto asked. You're at Camp Half-Blood. You probably have a lot of questions. Come on, I'll take you to Chiron and Mr. D, she said, leading Naruto out of the room. On the way out, Naruto saw Greek lettering all over the walls which he somehow knew how to read. That was the medical room. You were brought in after you caused quite a bit of a ruckus last night, Annabeth explained. Yeah, sorry about that. We wouldn't have made all that noise if not for Pasiphae's son trying to turn us into a shish kebab last night. He apologized while scratching the back of his head. You know your Greek history, she said, looking slightly impressed. My mom told me to brush up on Greek mythology when I first arrived in New York. That's a smart thing to do. What's your mother like? Annabeth said. Naruto shrugged. Dunno, I haven't met her yet. She wanted to ask another question, but the somber look on his face made her decide not to. She found herself staring a bit longer at him, to which Naruto noticed. Is there something on my face? He asked. Annabeth immediately looked away. Nothing. Naruto was awestruck with what he saw all around him. The valley marched all the way up to the water, which glittered about a mile in the distance. The landscape was dotted with buildings that looked like ancient Greek architecture: an open-air pavilion, an amphitheater, a circular arena, except that they all looked brand new, their white marble columns sparkling in the sun. In a nearby sandpit, a dozen high school-aged kids and satyrs played volleyball. Canoes glided across a small lake. Kids in bright orange t-shirts like what Annabeth was wearing were chasing each other around a cluster of cabins nestled in the woods. Some shot targets at an archery range. Others rode horses down a wooded trail. Some of their horses even had wings. They made their way to the farmhouse that Naruto saw last night up on the crest of the hills. Down at the end of the porch, two men were sitting across each other playing some kind of card game. Grover noticed them approaching and trotted over towards them. Naruto, he shouted and gave Naruto a big hug. Hey Annabeth, he gave her a hug too. Hey Grover, both blondes said at the same time. It's good to see you awake after what happened, Naruto said. Same here. Here, they found you clutching this when they found you, he said, handing a shoebox he was holding. Thanks Grover. Naruto looked inside and saw the Minotaur horn he broke off the head of the bullman the night before. Annabeth was peering in as well, curious to see what it was. Spoils of the battle, Naruto mumbled. He then looked at Grover and smiled. Gee, thanks. Come on, Chiron would want to see you, Grover said, still excited. When they were at the porch, Naruto immediately recognized one of them to be a familiar old man in a wheelchair with thinning brown hair and a scraggly beard, wearing a tweed jacket. Mr. Brunner, Naruto said with an inquisitive look on his face. Naruto, my boy, it's good to see you are up, Mr. Brunner greeted. I was not expecting you until tomorrow. Yeah, I get that a lot, he said, scratching the back of his head. I see, Mr. Brunner responded. How about you join us? We can play pinochle while we talk. Mr. Brunner motioned Naruto to sit on a chair with them in front of the table where they were playing cards. Thank you for bringing him here, Annabeth. You can run along now, Mr. Brunner said to Annabeth. Annabeth took one last look at Naruto, jumped off the porch, and ran off. Well, for starters, here I am called Chiron. Grover and Annabeth mentioned you while we were talking. You mean you are the same one from the myths, the centaur who trained famous heroes like Hercules, Achilles and Jason? The very same, Chiron replied. And this here is Mr. D, our camp director. He was pointing at the other guy sitting on the table with them. The man was small but porky. He had a red nose, big watery eyes, and curly hair so black it was almost purple. He looked like a cherub who'd turned middle age in a trailer park. He was wearing a tiger pattern Hawaiian shirt, and he looked like he could be one of Sunid's drinking buddies. This is Dionysus, known here at camp as Mr. D. Mr. D had an uninterested look on his face. Yes, well, welcome to camp, I guess. I apologize for keeping everything from you, my boy. Chiron apologized. It's just that knowing too much would attract more monsters, placing you in more danger than you already were. Chiron apologized. It's okay, Chiron. It's just that I just wish I could have saved Aunt Sally. Naruto said with sad eyes. Chiron put a hand on Naruto's shoulders and comforted the blonde. Okay, so now here's the hard part. Chiron said. If I may make a guess, the Greek gods from the myths are real and exist to this day. Naruto said. Mr. D was beginning to take interest in the blonde. My, you seem to have an idea on what I am getting at, my boy. Chiron said. I was told brush up on Greek mythology. Plus, I was attacked twice by things we all thought were myths at first. This couldn't have to be a coincidence. I see. Chiron nodded. Well, as you have said, the gods are very much alive. Over the years, they moved from country to country following Western civilization. As you have learned in Latin class, the gods come down to earth and fall in love with mortals and, sometime, if not most of the time, this love would produce a half-human, half-god offspring, a demigod. Naruto nodded. Yes, and where we are now is Camp Half-Blood. This camp is where demigods train and hone their skills, meet other demigods and form close friendships. For many, Camp Half-Blood is a place to call home because their scents may sometime attract monsters, which makes living in the mortal world dangerous. I see. That makes sense. You seem to be taking this rather well, my boy. Well, after everything that happened, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I woke up in this world, which I did not recognize, and I thought that would be the weirdest thing I will see in my lifetime. Mr. D was being more intrigued with the conversation. In this world? What do you mean? Mr. Brunner asked, curious at Naruto's last statement. Since you're being straightforward with me, I should be honest with you. Naruto said. I am from another world where the people use energy, known as chakra, to manipulate the elements and perform amazing feats. Chiron and Grover looked at Naruto, speechless at what the blonde said. Only Mr. D was able to speak. Do you mean you are from the elemental nations? Naruto nodded. This isn't true. You must be lying. Mr. D said. Naruto just shook his head. He held out his hand and formed a Rasengan. Grover gasped at the sight. Yep. That is chakra all right. Mr. D said, now amused. I must say, this is a first. We have never had anybody from the elemental nations here before. But that doesn't explain why you are able to enter, since you said you were taken in. If you were a regular mortal, you wouldn't be able to enter the borders, much less see this area. Naruto nodded. I woke up in an apartment with a note from someone who said she is taking me as her own. That makes sense. Only the gods are capable of traversing different worlds. Well, what's important is that you are safe here in camp. Chiron added. Wait, hold on. What are the elemental nations? What is chakra? And what is that blue thing Naruto has made? Well, Grover. Naruto was about to explain to Grover everything, when Mr. D mumbled, I am going to need a drink for this. Then, with a wave of a hand, he summoned a glass of wine. Thunder boomed. Mr. D, your restrictions. Chiron reminded while he was looking at his cards. Mr. D looked at the wine and feigned surprise. Oh dear me. Old habits. Sorry. Thunder boomed again. He waved his hand again and the glass of wine changed into a fresh can of Diet Coke. He sighed unhappily, popped open the top of the soda, and went back to the card game. Wait. Wine. Why, you must be Dionysus, god of wine. Naruto exclaimed after seeing what Mr. D did. That is correct. Nice to see not demigods who come here are complete idiots. Thanks, I guess. I'm sorry, Lord Dionysus. I should have realized sooner. Naruto apologized with a slight bow. I suppose that is fine, boy. I wouldn't expect anyone to recognize me with this look I have chosen to look as while I am here. Mr. said, his respect for the blonde climbing a little bit. Naruto thanked Mr. D and turned back to Grover. Sorry about that, Grover. Anyways. Naruto went on to explain everything about the elemental nations and chakra to Grover the way it was explained to him when he was studying in the academy. By the end of it, Grover was left dumbfounded and completely gobsmacked at the new information given to him. To think a world like that existed. Who knew? He said, slumping back. Naruto put a hand on Grover and said, "That is exactly what I felt when I came into this world." Grover's nose twitched when he smelled the familiar smell he always smelled when he was with him in Yancey Academy. He decided to ask, I have always wondered why you smell like a fox. Naruto was taken aback by the question. His expression darkened. Grover. It's okay, Naruto. You can trust him. Chiron put a hand on Naruto. I think all of you should hear this. Naruto took a deep breath and began to explain. There are these huge masses of chakra who have taken a living form. These creatures are as tall as a New York skyscraper. There are 9 of these massive creatures, each differentiated by their number of tails. The nations in my world have found the way to seal them inside humans to harness their powers. They are called the Jinchuriki. One of them is sealed inside of me. Naruto continued clutching his stomach. The 9-tailed fox. This gained the attention of the wine god who almost choked on his Diet Coke. You mean you are the Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed fox? Mr. D stood up and made his way to Naruto. Let me see the seal. Naruto lifted his shirt and channeled chakra through his body. After a few seconds, the seal appeared on his stomach. Mr. D kneeled over and examined the seal. I must say, this is quite a seal. In my time going over there to taste some of the wine in your world, I happened to come across a scroll of the sealing arts left by a random drunk mortal. I tried to study it. I may not be seal master, myself, but I can spot a good seal when I see one. Whoever made this seal was a genius. It is something my sister, Athena, would be jealous over. Naruto nodded. This could be troublesome. I should keep an eye on you, since we have never had a shinobi at camp, much less a Jinchuriki. I doubt you will have some episodes since the seal is doing its job at keeping the beast at bay. But we can never be too careful, we don't need a giant fox terrorizing the place. Naruto nodded in understanding while Mr. D explained to Chiron what a Jinchuriki was. Naruto turned to his friend. He raised the box beside him and said, I got to thank you again for this. It's the least I can do, since you and Percy saved me. Grover said, his expression turned downtrodden. I have protected you better, all of you. Chiron patted Grover on the back and said, Grover, you did a good job. That's 2 more that you have brought to safety. It should have been 5. He whispered to himself. Grover, why don't you take Naruto on a tour of camp? I'm sure he is eager to see what is around. Sure, Chiron. He said, getting up and motioned Naruto to follow. I'll see you guys later. Naruto said. When both boys left, Naruto left his cards and the paper where he tallied the points. Mr. D and Chiron became wide-eyed when they saw Naruto's score was way higher than theirs. On the tour around camp. That building where we were just now is the big house. It's basically the HQ of camp and where Chiron and Mr. D hang out to play pinochle. Grover explained. Naruto nodded as he looked around. They passed by several campers carrying either bows and arrows, swords or other assorted weapons. Others had maps or books while others carried tools. Several campers nudged each other when they saw Naruto. Another whispered to his companion, that's him, one of the 2 from last night. Most of the campers he saw were older than the blonde. There were satyrs bigger than Grover, but all were wearing camp half-blood t-shirts, with nothing else to cover the goat halves. There were those staring at him like how Annabeth did. Others were trying to figure Naruto out. Some of them, specifically the girls, were staring at him with stars in their eyes. They walked through the strawberry fields where there were kids were picking bushels of strawberries while a satyr was playing a tune on his reed pipes. Naruto took a whiff of the area and found that he was sighing happily. The place smelled heavenly. It smelled of freshly cut grass and smell of strawberries permeated through the air. Grover explained that the children of Demeter took up the task of keeping the strawberry fields in good condition along with the satyrs playing magical songs to help them grow. He also added that the strawberries helped pay the funds of the camp. It may have been a magical camp for demigods, but it still needed money from the mortal world. So, Grover, how were you assigned to find me and Percy? Naruto asked, striking a conversation with his satyr friend. I wasn't exactly assigned to find you. Grover replied. Satyrs are sent out to the mortal world to find demigods and bring them back to camp safely. Yancey Academy was my second chance. Second chance? You mean you did this before? He said, getting a solemn look from Grover. Yeah, a couple of years ago, but I'd rather not talk about it. Let's just say something went wrong along the way. Grover was sad for a moment, but he shook it off and continued, anyways, I was sent to Yancey Academy to look for half-bloods, then it just so happened that you and Percy were studying there. Originally, I thought that it was just Percy, and then I discovered you. That's when I called Chiron and he came to Yancey as well. Why was something the matter? Grover shook his head, no, not necessarily. It's just that you and Percy were giving off a strong scent, stronger than other demigods, though, yours may be because you're a shinobi and a Jinchuriki. Blaha. Man, that's weird. I still can't believe that a world like that exists. You have to tell me more sometimes. Sure man. Naruto said with a smile. And Grover, I would appreciate that you wouldn't tell anyone about the fox part. I just think people would take it the wrong way and. I don't blame you, Grover said. From what Mr. D had said, most people would be cautious. But you and Percy saved me, and I spent a lot of time with you to know that you can be trusted. Thanks man. Naruto replied. After the strawberry fields, they went past the archery range where a large group of children of varying ages were firing arrows at targets. They seemed pretty good since most were hitting just around the center. Grover showed Naruto the Pegasus stables, the forges, the circular arena, the archery field, the canoeing lake, the open-air pavilion where the campers eat at their assigned tables and the amphitheater where the campers have a campfire, tell stories, and sing songs. Naruto loved all of them, especially the Pegasus stables where he saw a beautiful girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. They made eye contact and smiled at each other. Naruto was about to go follow her, but Grover pulled him saying that there was a lot more to see. Naruto asked Grover about the woods around camp. Grover said that it was stocked with monsters that the campers can go and hunt. Naruto said it might be fun and that it was a good thing he brought his bag of kunai and shuriken. Grover shook his head and said that monsters could only be killed with celestial bronze, much to the disappointment of the blonde. Grover made him feel better by saying that they can visit the forges. Finally, they made their way to the cabins. There were 12 of them nestled in the woods by the lake. They were arranged in a U, with 2 at the base and 5 in a row of either side. Not a single cabin had the same design, except for a brass number placed above the door. Cabin 1 and 2 were the only ones with almost the same design. They looked like his and hers mausoleums, big white marble boxes with heavy columns in front. Cabin 1 was the biggest and bulkiest of the 12. Its polished bronze doors shimmered like a hologram, so that from different angles lightning bolts seemed to streak across them. Cabin 2 was more graceful somehow, with slimmer columns garlanded with pomegranates and flowers. The walls were carved with images of peacocks. Number 9 had smokestacks, like a tiny factory. Number 4 had tomato vines on the walls and a roof made out of real grass. 7 seemed to be made of solid gold, which gleamed so much in the sunlight it was almost impossible to look at. They all faced a commons area about the size of a soccer field, dotted with Greek statues, fountains, flower beds, and a couple of basketball hoops. In the center of the field was a huge stone-lined fire pit. Even though it was a warm afternoon, the hearth smoldered. A girl about 9 years old was tending the flames, poking the coals with a stick. She had brown hair with a small bandana covering her hair and wore a brown dress that went down to her knees. She turned to Naruto and gave him a smile. She then walked into the flames and disappeared. Grover explained that each cabin represents one of the 12 Olympians and houses the demigod children of that said god. Naruto noticed that some cabins were empty and asked, why are there cabins that are empty? Well, cabin 2 is empty because Hera is the goddess of marriage, so she doesn't have affairs, so no demigod children. The cabin's just ordinary. Cabin 1 and 3 are empty because the big 3, Zeus, Poseidon and Hades, had a pact to have no more demigod children due to some bad past events. Cabin 8 is empty because Artemis took an oath, along with Athena and Hestia, to remain a virgin, so no demigod children. Her cabin's mostly honorary. Mostly honorary? Naruto asked. Yeah. Grover nodded. From time to time, the hunters of Artemis, her handmaidens, sometimes visit camp. When they're here, they sleep there. Naruto stared at cabin 8 and felt like something was telling him to go there, but he ignored it. What about children of the other gods? They just stay at cabin 11. Naruto frowned. Won't that make the cabin overflow with campers? Yeah. Grover nodded, but Hermes is the god of travelers, so they accept anyone to stay there, even the unclaimed. As they were talking, a girl who had been staring at him from the cabin with barbed wires on the roof and a stuffed boar on the doorway approached them with 2 other bulky boys. Hey. Blondie. Hey, Blondie. A buff girl wearing an XXXL Camp Half-Blood t-shirt under a camouflage jacket called out to Naruto. This girl has the height of a basketball player and the muscular body of a rugby player. By the looks of it, she seems to be the most physically adept female fighter at camp. She has dark, pig eyes, and pale, stringy brown hair. This is Clarisse LaRue, head counselor of the Ares cabin. Or should I say dead meat? She said, earning chuckles from the two goons that were with her. All activity around them seemed to stop as the other campers around them stopped to watch the action about to unfold. Some of them looked at Naruto with a sorry look, knowing that the blonde would be beaten up on his first day at camp. The others whispered to one another about how the blonde isn't going to like what's going to happen. Oh, he's so doomed. Here we go again. Naruto turned to Clarisse and her goons with an uninterested look on his face. Oh hey, did you say something? The trio had a shocked look on their faces at what the blonde said. Clarisse's shock immediately turned to anger. She immediately ordered her goons to charge the blonde. One of the goons sent a punch aimed at the blonde, which sent him flying. As soon as the punch connected, he felt a sharp pain on his hand. He immediately pulled his hand back and nursed it with his other hand. He then felt something cold and sharp on his neck area. Don't move, Naruto said, causing the goon to freeze up. Grover, you better stay back, Naruto said to his friend. But Grover tried to protest but decided to step back. Everyone was surprised when they saw Naruto already behind his attacker holding a kunai on his neck. Clarisse and the other goon had their mouths wide open at what they saw. They didn't even see the blonde move. They looked over to where they thought the blonde flew to, only to see a log lying in place. Clarisse pushed the other goon towards Naruto. Immediately, goon number 2 aimed a punch at the blonde whose back was turned to him. Naruto, sensing the incoming punch, cocked his head sideways and pulled the kunai back, making the punch miss and head straight to the first goon. Goon number 1 was sent forward a couple of feet with his face on the ground. Naruto turned to face goon number 2 and taunted him with hands, doing the come gesture. Goon number 2 immediately got enraged and charged Naruto with a punch aimed at his face. The blonde caught the punch in his hand and grabbed goon number 2's arm. As goon number 1 was beginning to get upright behind him, he threw goon number 2 towards goon number 1, which knocked both of them back to the ground. Clarisse, who was watching, growled at her two goons, incompetent, little. Is that it? Naruto asked with a bored tone. If not, you better wrap it, I still got a tour to go back to. With Naruto's back turned to her, she charged. Naruto sidestepped and swiped at her calves with his leg, making Clarisse go off balance. Naruto put an arm on her chest, slammed her on the ground. He stared at the girl dead in the eye. Nice try, girl. If all three of you charged me, you may have had a chance. He offered a hand to Clarisse and helped her stand up. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, by the way. She was speechless. All she could was her name. Clarisse LaRue, daughter of Ares. She took his hand and stood up. She decided not to say anything else, ran to her goons, shook them awake, and walked away. The event left her flustered. Everyone watching was speechless and awestruck at how Naruto handled the situation. Grover walked towards his friend with stars in her eyes and said, Naruto, that was. Naruto just gave a big grin at his friend. So, where were we, Grover? Naruto said, changing the subject. The cabins, Grover said. Yeah, the cabins. So, where do I sleep? You stay at cabin 11 until you are determined. Grover answered. Come on, I'll introduce you to them. At cabin 11. They made it to a cabin 11 which, out of all the cabins, looked like a regular old summer camp cabin. The cabin's threshold was worn down and the brown paint was peeling. Over the doorway was one of those doctor's symbols, a winged pole with two snakes wrapped around it, a caduceus. They stood at the doorway, and Naruto took a look inside. Naruto saw that the cabin was packed with people, both boys and girls, way more than the number of bunk beds. Sleeping bags were all over the floor, like a gym where the Red Cross has set up an evacuation center. Naruto, meet cabin 11. Grover introduced Naruto to his new cabin mates. Regular or undetermined? Somebody asked. Undetermined, Grover answered. Everybody groaned. A guy a little older than the others came forward. Now, campers. That's what we're here for. Welcome, Naruto. This guy who spoke was older than all the others, about 19 years old. He was tall and muscular, with short-cropped sandy hair and a friendly smile. He wore an orange tank top, cut-offs, sandals, and a leather necklace with 5 different colored beads. There was a thick white scar that ran just beneath his right eye to his jaw, like an old knife slash. "This is Luke Castellan." "This is Luke," Grover said. "He's your counselor for now." "For now?" Naruto asked. Luke made his way to the doorway to speak with their newcomer. "Hey Grover, what's up?" He greeted Grover and gave him a high five. After that, he turned to Naruto and explained, "You're undetermined, so they don't know what cabin to put you in. That's why you're here for the meantime. Since Hermes, our patron, is the god of travelers, Cabin 11 would naturally take all newcomers and visitors in." At the start of the explanation, Naruto noticed that there was resentment and bitterness in voice for a small while which quickly disappeared. Naruto decided to keep it to himself. Where do I sleep?" Naruto inquired. "You can have that spot on the floor there," Luke answered. Naruto was about to move to his tiny spot on the floor, but Grover called out. "Hey Naruto, I gotta run. I'll see you at dinner." Grover waved goodbye to Naruto, gave another high five to Luke and ran off. "Bye Grover." Both boys said goodbye back as Grover was running off. Naruto turned to Luke and said, "So, I need a shower, but my bag got lost in the mud when our car exploded." I'll see what I can do," Luke replied. "I'll go by the camp store. Why don't you come inside for a while?" Naruto went inside towards the spot Luke pointed to a while back, while Luke made his way to the camp store. As Naruto was walking to his spot, everyone in the cabin was staring at him, some maybe sizing him up. Naruto looked at their faces. Some were sullen and suspicious, others were grinning stupidly, and some were eyeing him like waiting for the chance to pick his pockets. Naruto got to his spot and took a seat. He noticed his new cabin mates were still staring at him, so he said, "Guys, I appreciate the attention, but you may carry on now." When the others heard that, the cabin turned chaotic again. Some were talking, while the others were horsing around. 2 of the campers in the cabin, who Naruto assumed were twins because they looked alike, were pranking some of their unfortunate cabin mates. Naruto sat on his spot letting out a loud sigh. A few minutes later. "Hey Naruto, I'm back," Luke greeted to Naruto when he got back. Luke found the blonde staring at the ceiling and, occasionally at their cabin mates. "Oh, hey Luke," Naruto greeted back. "I got you some spare clothes and a sleeping bag," the older boy said. "Thanks Luke." "No problem." Naruto made his way to the bathrooms, and took a shower. As he was under the flowing water of the shower head, he started to think. With him alone in the showers, he started to show the emotions he was keeping bottled up. He felt regret for being too slow to save his Aunt Sally. He felt so angry with himself because he could have kept an eye on her better. He punched the wall right next to him and said, "Damn it." Then, he remembered his teammate Sasuke. He remembered his hate for his older brother, Itachi. He remembered how consumed he was in hatred that he was willing to go to Orochimaru in search for power. At that moment, he resigned himself to go a different path as his former teammate. He told himself that he found a new home and he should get stronger in order to protect his new home. He also told himself that if the time comes, he will save his Aunt Sally whatever it takes. When he was done showering, he went to explore the camp by himself. He looked for places to train. He also tried the climbing wall. He got up quickly, but another camper trying to climb the wall with him almost got singed with lava for being too slow to climb the wall. Fortunately, Naruto was able to pull him out of the way just in time. He also looked for great places to hang out during his down times. He made it to a hill overlooking camp. He climbed a nearby tree, and looked out at camp. "Man, I'll never get over this view," he said to himself. He sat there for the rest of the afternoon admiring the exhilarating view of camp. He loved this place more and more. He rested on the trunk of the tree, watched the other campers doing their activities. Naruto heard a conch horn blow in the distance. He noticed that the campers were stopping their activities. He shrugged it off and lay back down. A few minutes later, familiar voice called out to him. "There you are, my boy." Naruto looked down and saw Chiron in his centaur form calling out to him at the foot of the tree. "It's time for dinner," Chiron called out. "Sure Chiron," Naruto replied and jumped down from the tree. The conch horn signals meal time. When you hear it, you must head out to the dining pavilion. "Sorry Chiron, I wasn't told about it." "That's okay, my boy. Come, I'll take you to dinner." Naruto was about walk when Chiron picked him up, placed him on his back, and galloped towards the open-air dining pavilion. Dining pavilion. Chiron dropped Naruto off at the dining pavilion. Naruto was still shocked when he got off of Chiron's back. That was definitely an experience, Naruto said, shaking the shock off of him. Chiron placed a hand on Naruto's shoulders and said, "Before we go in, Naruto, I should tell you that you shouldn't hold the burden you are carrying to yourself. Mr. D has informed me of the hardships a Jinchuriki faces. You should know that you won't have to face those hardships here. Do not feel that you have to hide yourself from us, we're all family here. They will be wary of you, at first, but they will learn to accept you. Everyone here has felt left out and considered an outcast at some point in their lives, so if you decide to tell them, they will understand you and accept you for who you are." "Thanks, Chiron," Naruto said, wiping a tear from his eyes. "You don't know how much I appreciate that. When Mr. D introduces you to everyone later, he will let them know you are from the Elemental Nation, but he will leave it to you to tell them about your tenant when you are ready." Naruto nodded and the two walked in. Inside the pavilion, Naruto saw that there were torches blazing around marble columns. A central fire burned in a bronze brazier. Each cabin had its own table, covered with white cloth trimmed in purple. 4 of the tables were unoccupied, but one table was overcrowded with campers. Naruto figured it was cabin 11 since he saw Luke and the twins he saw in the cabin sitting there. Naruto also spotted Annabeth at a table with other campers who had similar features to her. The two made their way to the head table where Mr. D was sitting. As they were walking, there were a few whispers from the crowd. "Hey, that's him, one of the two from last night. Did you hear about what he did to Clarisse a while back? The whisker marks on his face are so cute. He's so hot." Naruto shrugged off the comments, except for the last comment, which caused him to get a tingling sensation up his spine. Back in the Elemental Nations, he had a fair share of these so-called fangirls, which he had to hide from all the time. Chiron pointed at the overcrowded table and told Naruto to join his cabin mates. Luke saw Naruto and greeted him. "Hey Naruto, where have you been? We've been looking for you." "Hee, sorry about that. I went exploring for a while," Naruto said while scratching the back of his head. "Come on, have a seat," Luke offered. "Make room, guys." The campers shifted to give way for Naruto and the blonde sat beside Luke. A few moments later, Chiron pounded his hoof against the marble floor, and everybody fell silent. He raised his glass and shouted, "To the gods." Everyone else raised the glass and shouted as well, "To the gods." Wood nymphs came forward with platters of food. There were grapes, apples, cheese, fresh bread, and barbecue. Naruto noticed that everyone else's cups were filled with whatever drink he could think of. Luke explained to him that the cups were enchanted and would fill up with whatever drink they desired. Orange juice. The cup filled with an orange liquid. The blonde gave it a taste and grinned happily at the taste. "Perfect," he said. Luke handed Naruto a huge slab of ribs, much to the appeal of the latter. He loaded his plate with everything he could see. He was about to devour the contents of his plate when he saw that everybody else was standing up carrying their plates to the fire in the center pavilion. This prompted Naruto to do the same. When they made it to the fire, Naruto saw that the other campers scraped a portion of their food into the fire and said a few words. He saw that they were scraping in the juiciest slice of beef, the ripest strawberry, and the warmest, most buttery roll. When it was Luke's turn, he took a cluster of fat red grapes, tossed it to the fire, and bowed. "Hermes," he said. It was Naruto's turn. The blonde took about a quarter of his ribs, the meatiest portion, and scraped it to the fire. "This is for you, Mom, wherever you are." Naruto took a whiff of the smoke before getting back to his table. He was surprised that the smell was a lovely mix of hot chocolate, hamburgers, wildflowers, and other good things that shouldn't have gone well together, yet it smelled awesome all the same. He got back to the table with his cabin mates and devoured the food that was on his plate. He suddenly remembered how much he missed ramen. The blonde caught one of the nymphs and asked if he could have some ramen. To his delight, the nymph gave him a bowl of ramen that resembled one of those videos he had seen on the internet. He tasted and concluded that it was tasty but was not as delicious as the ones he had at Ichiraku. While eating, he got to talk to the resident prankers of the camp, the two who he thought were twins. He told them of the pranks he did when he was younger, the times he had to prank in order to get the villagers to notice him. When he got to the part where he painted the Hokage stone faces, the twins practically worshipped him and called him king of pranks. He told them that, these days, he wasn't pranking anyone anymore unless there was a good reason, much to the dismay of the twins. After dinner, Mr. D, from the head table, stood up and cleared his throat to get the attention of the other campers. As you know, we have 2 new arrivals last night. One of them is joining us tonight. I'm sure you all have heard rumors that both of them have defeated the Minotaur last night. That is indeed very much true. Many of the campers began to whisper amongst themselves as if not believing what Mr. D had told them. Mr. D snapped his fingers and the shoebox the blonde left at the Hermes cabin appeared in front of Naruto. Naruto opened it and took out the contents, revealing the Minotaur horn. Many marveled at him, except for the campers of the Ares cabin who looked at him with a tinge of jealousy. Mr. D began to speak again. The one with us tonight is Naruto Uzumaki. The campers began to whisper again, wondering if that was really his real name, since Mr. D has a habit of mispronouncing names. Chiron cleared his throat and clarified that that was his actual name. Anyway, Mr. Uzumaki is not like any other demiurge, Mr. D said, causing the campers to glance at the blonde. He is not from around here. Unbeknownst to us all, there is a parallel world that exists in a different dimension that exists separately from our own. This separate dimension contains another world with a complete history of about 1,000 years or so. Here, the people, called shinobi or ninja in our tongue, are able to use energy, known as chakra, to bend the elements and perform amazing feats. This world is known as the Elemental Nations. Naruto is the first demigod to come from the Elemental Nations. Therefore, please welcome him with open arms, Mr. D said dryly. Everyone was speechless. They didn't know what to say. Everyone just stared at Naruto, except for one Annabeth Chase, who was staring at Naruto like Christmas came early. Luke managed to stutter out a question. "And Naruto, is that true?" Naruto nodded. "Do you think you could show us a shinobi trick?" Luke asked. Naruto stood up and made his way to one of the stone pillars. He made a half ram seal and started to stroll up the stone pillar as if he was walking on the ground. "Whoa," everyone said in unison. "I wonder what else he can do." Someone asked in the crowd. "Very good question," Naruto said aloud. He dropped down the pillar and, with another half ram seal, shouted, "Transform." In a puff of smoke, he appeared as Mr. D. Everyone was looking back and forth at the real Mr. D and the copy, comparing the two. It was an exact perfect copy of Mr. D. Even the wine god was impressed with the copy of himself. Naruto cancelled the jutsu only for the campers swarm him, asking him more about his world, how he came into this world, and what other cool trick he could do. Naruto even swore he heard someone ask him if he has a girlfriend. Luckily for him, Chiron pounded his hoof on the floor again to get the campers' attention. There was a collective groan from the group. That is enough introductions for one night. It's time for us to move to the amphitheater for our campfire. Amphitheater. After the events of dinner, the campers made their way to the amphitheater where Apollo Cabin led the sing-along. There were also s'mores that were roasted over a campfire. In the middle of the singing, Naruto sensed a presence beside him. He looked over to see who it was and saw Annabeth with eyes still in her eyes holding a pen and a notebook. "I take it you want to know about where I'm from?" Naruto asked, casing Annabeth to nod her head vigorously. "Well, all right then," the older blonde said. "Where do I start?" He started telling Annabeth about the 5 great nations named after an element with a distinct landscape and environment, and that there were one hidden village located in each nation. He explained that each nation was ruled by a feudal lord and a hidden village is led by a Kage, someone who is considered the strongest shinobi in the village. He also added that there were different smaller nations which may or may not have a hidden village. He continued by telling her about the shinobi and kunoichi who serve as the military forces of each village. He told her that, at the age of 8, children start their training at the ninja academy located in each village. He explained that academy students train for 4 years, and, when they graduate, they become genin. Annabeth asked him what a genin was, which made Naruto explain the ninja ranks and the jobs they do. He then explained that shinobi and kunoichi train to harness their chakra in order to perform jutsu and control the elements and place people under illusions. He also told her that chakra can be used to perform amazing feats, like the wall climbing technique he did earlier, and increase the strength of attacks in hand-to-hand combat. Annabeth asked how the chakra could do the latter, but Naruto told her that she would show her sometime. He explained that, unfortunately, there were those who were not able to wield chakra. To compensate, they master taijutsu or hand-to-hand combat and increase their speed and strength to inhuman levels. He ended by telling Annabeth about his former home, the Leaf Village. He told her of the leader of the village, and currently it was led by Lady Sunad, earning a, wow, from Annabeth. She was surprised that a woman was hailed as the strongest in the village and that she was leading the village. Finally, Naruto told Annabeth about the landscape in and around the Leaf Village. He told her about his favorite spots in the village. He told her about the Hokage monument that was like Mount Rushmore in the United States, the training field where they fought Kakashi for the bell test, the library and bookstore where he spent most of his childhood reading, the ramen stand where he spent the rest of his childhood if he wasn't reading books, and other spots he liked to hang out in. Annabeth kept scribbling on her notebook, jotting down the things that Naruto. At the end, she took a deep breath and exclaimed, "This is amazing, a whole different civilization with so much to learn about it. I take it you love to learn." Naruto said, to which Annabeth nodded her head rapidly. "Oh, absolutely. As a child of Athena, I am expected to love learning, most especially, reading." "Me too. When I first came to this world, I literally buried myself into books trying to learn everything I can about this world. Right now, I am just trying to find something good to read." Annabeth's eyes lit up at what Naruto said. You're like me. Since you're unclaimed, you could be a child of Athena." Annabeth guessed, but, deep inside, she kind of felt like she didn't want it to be the case. Naruto just shrugged. "How long have you been at camp?" Naruto asked. 5 summers, she replied, showing her necklace. "I basically grew up here." Annabeth replied. Do we stay at camp all our lives?" "Well, that depends. There are those whose scent isn't that strong enough to attract monsters. They get some training over the summer, and go home to their families. Those who don't have families or whose scent too strong that they attract too much of the wrong attention stay at camp all year round." Naruto fell silent and looked over in the distance. "I'm sorry about your Aunt Sally," Annabeth said. "It's all right. I'm trying to tell myself it wasn't my fault, but I can't help but blame myself." Annabeth just put a hand on Naruto's shoulder for comfort. At that moment, the conch horn blew again, signaling that it was time to go back to their respective cabins. "I guess I'll see you around," Annabeth said. "Yeah, I'll see you around. Good night," Naruto said, and then he tapped Annabeth on the forehead, causing the latter to blush slightly. Good night." Everyone filed in with their respective cabins and made their way to their cabins. Cabin 11. Everyone was getting ready for bed. Naruto was tired from the day's activities. He was about to lie down when Luke tapped him on the shoulder. "Hey Naruto," Luke said, getting the blonde's attention. "I got something for you." Luke gave him a pair of Camp Half-Blood t-shirts and a bare leather necklace. "Since you're part of camp now, you're required to wear that necklace," Luke said. "We all have that necklace. At the end of each summer, you get a bead that contains a picture of what the head counselors have agreed was the biggest event of that summer," he explained, showing the blonde his necklace. "Thanks Luke." "No problem. 5 beads, so 5 summers, right?" Naruto asked. "I noticed Annabeth had 5 beads too." "Yeah, that's right. We basically came to camp together," Luke said. Naruto caught a little resentment and anger in his voice when he said that, so Naruto decided to stop asking any more questions. "You better get some sleep. It was a long day," Luke told the blonde. "Yeah, I'm feeling tired already," Naruto replied, to which Luke nodded. Luke walked across to the other side of the room and announced to the whole cabin that it was lights out. Naruto lay down on his sleeping bag and immediately fell asleep, exhausted from the day's activities. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.